morning, everyone. Welcome to Friday. You made it to Friday, and we're almost done with September, so you're almost there. You're almost there. So this morning, we have an epic show for you. There's strippers, there's cash, there's corruption. It'll be lots of fun. So we're going to talk about all of these things and more. And then, as always, we are live. So if you want to participate in this conversation, drop us a chat, join in on Twitter, on our Facebook page. We will see most of them. The only ones that we don't necessarily see, if you're joining a watch party and do comments in that, we may not necessarily see them. So for all of the people who are joining in on Mike Bettino's watch party, know that we may not see your comments unless you come right to our Facebook page. But before we get into all of that, Andy Kennedy, how are you this morning? What's going on?
Oh, not much. Just kind of enjoying a nice fall day in the great white north. That's not white yet, but soon. And having a little bit of a conundrum today because I'm not 100% sure what to do personally here because Nurse Deb, my wife, Nurse Deb, and people may have heard us talking of her before. She is working the afternoon shift at the hospital this week, which is 3 p.m. till 11 p.m. But she was on call last night, and that means that once they're done their last case, she goes home. And then if there's something that happens overnight, she gets called back into work, right, until about 7:30 in the morning. And then she's not on call anymore. Well, there were so many cases on the board last night that she got home at 7 o'clock just as I was getting up. So she worked over 15 hours straight. And I know people work long shifts, and I know that, that people work double shifts and such. But you have to remember that as a scrub nurse, Nurse Deb is on her feet the entire time. And Nurse Deb is old like me. So she dragged her barely living carcass out of the car into the house as I was getting up. And I didn't bid her a good morning because I knew I would get punched. So now she took Friday off because they're having the girls are having a girls' weekend starting this afternoon, right? But so she's got to get a decent amount of sleep during the day today. The only problem is that she is supplying one of the meals and has, is today supposed to pre-make a lasagna. So I don't know when to wake her up
Andy,
so that she can do that, or me possibly trying to replicate her lasagna. Yeah. And, potentially poisoning people.
No. So, lasagna is super easy. It's really the sauce. So if you want to get super duper brownie points, make the lasagna.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I do think I'm going to at least start the procedure. Right. So, I have made lasagna before. I do know how to do it. I just, I actually have a family recipe for it, but Deb was the one that went out and got the ingredients. So I don't know if all of the ingredients are there for the one that I made. So, I might be making an emergency grocery store.
Oh, ouch. So. Well, good luck to you there. And let poor Nurse Deb sleep. That's just
on top
crazy.
Of trying to keep my dogs quiet all day, which will...
peanut butter, lots of peanut butter. So, wow. Okay, so good luck to you there. Good luck. Yes. So, for those of you just tuning in, I'm posting in the chat now, so you can follow along and check our work. Check, the things that we say. Here are all the sources that we're going to talk about today. I invite you to read over them at your leisure. But if you have any comments, questions, you think we're doing a terrible job, weigh in. We'll see most of them. And maybe you'll be famous. So this will be fun. This will be fun. So, all right. So while Nurse Deb is sleeping, let's try to keep it down, but I just think this is going to be so fun. So today we're talking about grift and corruption and getting paid. So I really want to start with the professionals in this, and if you haven't seen it yet, there are a group of professional ladies. These are exotic dancers out of Atlanta who put together this wonderful video trying to get people to understand why those down ballot local races matter. And it's called Get Your Booty to the Polls. So let me see if I can find this one. Here it is. I'm going to play it now. Here we go.
Do you know who elects the DA? We do, but you don't want to vote. Can't make it rain if you locked up on some bullshit.
Want trades and coding taught in our schools?
Then vote for the school boards that will prepare us for the job market.
Want to end cash bail? Well, then vote for the sheriffs and county officials that feel the same way you do.
But you talking about, oh, they gonna pick who they gonna pick, shawty.
Ferguson just elected their first black mayor.
You know how that happened?
It's clear black lives don't matter to some of our current elected officials.
If they matter to you, then don't let other people decide who's gonna run your community. Get your booty to the poll.
Get your booty to the poll.
Get your booty to the poll.
Get your vote, yeah, vote, stretch.
For information on how and where to vote, as well as resources to find out who's running where you live, go to getyourbootytothepoll.com.
To the poll, get your booty to the poll, get your booty to the poll.
Okay. So that was an abridged version. There's an intro to that is just as amazing, and I love everything about it. So those are
if they can get those booties down to the polls, you can get yours.
That's exactly right. And I love the message where they're explaining to people about you elect your sheriff, you elect your district attorney. So all of this stuff that we're seeing with the Black Lives Matter issue and the Breonna Taylor verdict and all of these things that came down, that's on us. It really is on us. And especially the message when they talk about Ferguson's new mayor. Holy cow, that's such powerful stuff. And they're absolutely right. And later, I think on Monday, we're going to have an expanded version on what's going on in Louisville, Kentucky, and the Breonna Taylor thing. And we have a very special guest joining us. But for now, let's stick to the grift, because we're seeing these headlines come out and everything that's going on in Congress, where it has been raining nonstop. But it's been raining Russia currency. So it's raining rubles, basically. So the first up on our list is this 87-page report that came out from Republicans in Congress. And I hope that this was not their October surprise to take down Biden, because it was so weak. And yeah, there was nothing in it that we didn't already know. And in fact, they ended up roping in some of their own in the corruption and the grift. So if you haven't read that delightful 87-page report, I encourage you highly. Go do it. Go read it and see what they came up with. And their whole focus was on Hunter Biden and his role in Ukraine gas companies, sitting on a board. And there's what cracked me up was they were like, he has no known skills to serve on a board of a Ukrainian gas company. And I'm like, most board members don't, but okay, let's target.
and his credentials now, he's perfect for the DNC.
Absolutely. And I thought it was funny because I've ever since I was little, my goal was I want to be a board member of just a couple different companies, because you only have to work 4 days out of the year, once a quarter. And they fly you in, or used to before COVID, and you would make some, commentary about the way the business is being run and whatever, and then you go home. I'm like, that is the best job ever. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure that a 9-year-old is qualified to sit on a board, but whatever. So let's get into the report here. So I love this, that it's about Hunter Biden, and he received 3.5 million in wire transfers from a Russian billionaire. So as you read this story, and it comes out, okay, let's back up because there's so much to unpack in this. So you have this billionaires. No, she's a billionaires. Her name is Elena, and she is the widower of the former mayor of Moscow. And she got her money because her company was secured by Moscow while her husband was mayor of Moscow. And he used her plastics company to funnel money from Moscow to hire her company. So we have nepotism going on there. So she made a ton of bank. And then the mayor of Moscow died. I didn't go into how he died. I'm sure there was nothing untoward there. But so here's Miss Elena. She's looking foxy and she's ready to trot. And here comes handsome Hunter Biden. And he's wheeling and dealing here, and somehow he secured money and investments from her through wire transfers through a couple of different, I want to call them shell companies, but they are actual legal companies. So this was supposed to be the bombshell of this whole thing, right? So what struck me as funny is, I mean, okay, so you mean like Hunter was trying to cash in and make deals based on his last name. Where have we heard that before? I can't. Well, Paris Hilton comes to mind, right? Paris is famous for what? Her name. That's about it. Same thing with the big hotels that have Trump's name on it. We know that Trump himself really had very little money and very little interest in it, but he was leasing the use of his name for stakes in a university and whatever. So here we have Hunter Biden trying to profit from his name and access to, we believe, his famous father. Right, so the gist of this whole report is that he got this money she's from Russia. Okay, so the only piece, in my opinion, the only piece that has any teeth in this report is Joe Biden himself said that he was never briefed on it. And in this report, we can prove conclusively that he was briefed on it. So that, I think, is the only thing that's really going to stick in this report. But wait, it gets better. So in this particular report, a couple things came out, like, you know, other people who also got caught doing some things that they weren't. And my favorite was this one on Rick Perry. So Rick Perry out of Texas.
Not the lead singer of Journey.
No, that Rick Perry's fine. This Rick Perry, who was the former Secretary of Energy, the Department of Energy, and didn't know what that entity was, either before, during, or after his service as a Secretary of Energy. So apparently he was using his position to influence who got to sit on the board. So basically, here's how it works. Andy, if you're in the U.S. Congress or in some influential thing, I'm going to donate to your campaign a lot of money.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, no problem. So what I want in return is I want a posting to be an ambassador somewhere. I want some legislation fixed. Or I want you to put me on a board so I can only work 4 days a week and make, you know, $20,000, $30,000, $60,000 for that work. So that's what Perry did. So in this 87-page report, Rick Perry got thrown under the bus. I was like, oh, geez, that kind of sucks.
So if you've never understood the phrase that involves glass houses and stone throwing, this might be the perfect opportunity to understand.
Exactly. So just sitting back watching all of this, to me it was it's like the mean girl mudslinging, right? So we know that people are buying influence when they're making these donations, when they're sitting down to lunch with a congressperson or whatever, unless it's, somebody like you or I who is trying to lobby for something and we've got no power. There's a quid pro quo going on, and this is why there's so much money from lobbyists and all of these things going through Congress. Open Secrets is a wonderful resource, and they pull from the FEC reports, and you can see who these lobbyist groups are, who's actually a registered lobbyist, all of these things. So you can start to peel back a little bit on who's influencing who here, and why is it that you and I as regular people cannot get legislation passed to literally save our lives, right? It's always these businesses and entrepreneurs and millionaires. So that was what was interesting, but here's where it took a weird turn. So in that report, they talked about that $3.5 million being transferred through various companies, and one of them was a company called Bach USA, BAK. So here's the problem, and this one I literally spit out my coffee this morning reading this, because it's featured prominently, but only this little tiny station, Channel 2, bothered to call the owner of Bach USA. And the guy who ran the company said, look, we're not even in business anymore. So this report that they had about the money coming through, he's like, there's no way it came through us. We're closed. And oh, by the way, no, none of this is true. So nobody in Congress who is working on this report, none of the aides, none of the big networks just even bothered to pick up the phone and track down this guy who owned the company.
Imagine the entire group of people that have never heard of Google.
I know. This poor guy, he's seen his company now splashed all over and he's like, what the hell? I had nothing to do with this. Keep me out of your nonsense. So it's just so funny because this little reporter, Nate Benson, who just called him up, and the guy's like, yeah, no, I don't even know what this is about. No, wasn't me. So, all right, so now we got to go back to the Senate report and go, okay, so you have evidence and you put it in your cited sources of this 87-page report. This guy's saying no. Somebody's not telling the truth here. So, so this is why you always have to cite your sources, because we need to check your work.
Clearly that investigative reporting is a dinosaur that's died.
Definitely, especially okay, so let's be honest about it. Congressmen do not write their own reports. They get briefed on it, and most of them just don't. They skim it. There's the rare one or two who will read, but most of it they get.
And you have to be good at reading something while you're walking down a corridor to another meeting.
Yeah, there's that. So you've got people who are giving you kind of the cliff notes. Well, if you're going to put your name on, this bombshell report, so I hope, and rarely will I ever say this, I hope whoever put that together with the BAK thing, either they were trying to be hilariously funny and sabotage this whole thing, or they need to be fired immediately. Because, oh my God. I'm just, yeah. So if you go to that report, and I posted the link on it for the BAK, there's actual dialogue, and the guy's like, there's no fucking way. Now I'm paraphrasing, but yeah, so I thought that was hilarious. But so here again, you have the deflection going on. This is where the Mean Girls thing comes in. So this is from the LA Times. So back and forth, Biden, Trump. So there's this really nice report from the LA Times where Trump's children take in millions in overseas as the president slams Biden's son, right? So just again, they're going back and forth here. But you remember, Andy, when this was really early on when we were newly offended, and then things just got worse and worse. But you remember when Trump got elected and Ivanka came on, and they were literally trying to turn the press briefings into like a home shopping network. So Ivanka had on like this bedazzled bracelet, and they mentioned where you could buy her bracelet. Ivanka is wearing a blah, 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 and you can buy
Right.
it. Okay.
Yes, I remember. That's when I used to wear pearls.
Right, exactly. So you're glad you're out of that phase. So, but what I thought was funny is all of that has come back to haunt them. And on our Monday show, we talked about the emoluments case. And let me see if I still have that. Oh, I do. Still have that up there. So there are not one, not two, but three cases against Trump himself in the Supreme Court docket, and also in the Southern District of New York, who has brought up the emoluments. So just a refresher, emoluments clause says that you cannot use your office of the presidency to personally enrich yourself. Now,
Or your family.
yeah, so this entire show is about not only the president and his family, but all these fuckers in Congress who are using their station to
And you're
enrich.
paraphrasing again.
I am. I am. So they're using their positions to enrich themselves, right? So the irony is, one thing that barely made a splash on the news that came out this week was part of the Southern District of New York, the federal court. They wanted Eric Trump to come and testify on some corruption stuff that was going on with Trump and inflating his net worth for insurance gain. And Eric said, no, I'm not coming to testify or to sit for a deposition until after the election. Thank you very much. Well, what came out this week was the Southern District went, we're not asking. Get your ass here. And so now Eric Trump has to go sit for a deposition by October 6th. So that's a big deal. That's a big deal. Because if you do nothing else, like we have seen in our country, that if you shoot a person, not a big deal. If you damage property, depends on who owns the property. But if you commit a financial crime against another millionaire or an agent of Wall Street, that's a big deal. That is why the case in the Southern District of New York is a big deal, because we're talking about insurance fraud. So for Eric Trump to have to go and sit for a deposition on October 6th, oh boy, please let that not be sealed. Can we please see it? I would be like wallpaper.
If I could get one thing for Christmas.
Can I please?
Well, and it's absolutely like when you look at all of this, like like you said, it takes nothing to piece this together, right? Mm-hmm. And so the whole last how many years, 4 years of Trump, orange man bad, which is basically the only policy position of the Dems in the U.S. You're wondering, okay, all of this stuff is going on, right? Which is highly illegal. And you can make the argument that it's treasonous, right? So it's absolutely scary. You've got the resistance, right? The blue resistance. I did air quotes. I don't do air quotes that often, but
you have to when you say.
So you got this resistance that are out there, and they're trying to oust Trump and Russia, 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 and he's absolutely horrible. Yet mainstream media, CNN and MSNBC, CNBC, you don't see this stuff anywhere.
Mm-mm.
You have to ask yourself, why is that? If Orange Man bad is your only policy position, then why isn't this stuff going out?
No, well, okay, you and I know. But maybe people still don't get it, right? Because I remember when Keith Olbermann was removed from MSNBC, and I was like, oh, here we go. And they started bringing in Fox News people in executives and programming editorial decisions. I'm like, this is the takeover. They're co-opting any center left or, sort of right, and they're going to make it all right. So you have Fox News and MSNBC and all of these big networks who are all to the right now, because if you can't beat them, you co-opt them. And so this is why you're not going to see this anywhere. But let's back up a little bit and get serious just for a second. So
wait a minute.
I know, but we gotta talk about this.
We'll back up, but we're not getting serious.
Fine, all right. We'll back up but not be serious.
Okay.
When we talk about, and you use the word treason, right? There's a very narrow definition, but the hyperbole that's going on right now is it's treason, it's treason, it's treason. Well, when you look at these things that are like the Rick Perry's, and I've got some stuff here on Mitch McConnell that I want to talk about. It goes to the highest offices in the country with security. A security risk, a security violation, information that is integral to the workings of the United States and policy. So one of the things that I want to remind people is that, in particular, an example is Jared Kushner. Jared Kushner does not have, nor can he get, a security clearance. Yet he sits in on all of these meetings. And I remember when that question came out and the DOD and Department of State, they were really concerned. Because let me put it to you like this. There's a couple of reasons why you would be denied or have your security clearance revoked. And they can range for something simple. It all goes to character. They look at the totality of the person, the whole person. So if you have a security clearance and you end up with a DUI, you can have your security clearance revoked or partially rescinded. If you have financial debts and you are not good with money or you're overspending, there's like an addictive personality or something like that, you may not get a security clearance. If you have been found to engage in fraudulent activity, lying, coercion, excessive court cases, or people brought judgments against you because you were dishonest, you may not get a security clearance. The other part of it is if you have excessive relationships with foreign folks. So like if I were, so Andy's from Canada. If I were hanging out with Andy and Andy were hanging out with other, not Canadians, but just there's an extensive network of foreign nationals, and those people have conflicts of interest with the work that I will be doing, I might be denied security clearance. So with all of these things in context, look at the stories that we have just talked about. How would somebody like Rick Perry ever get security clearance? How would any of the Trump kids get security clearance? How would Trump himself get security clearance but for the office of the presidency? And these are things that you really need to consider. And still you have somebody like Jared Kushner who cannot get a security clearance but still is gaining access to the information that he should be barred from, right? And how many times did we see Trump actually say something that was prohibited because it was of a sensitive nature? This is why. So
You look at all you have to do is look at the meetings that he's had at the White House with the Oleg, what is his name, Shiranovsky, the Russian ambassador at the White House, not allowing any press into that meeting, and it being reported by the Russian media.
oh yeah, exactly.
From the White House. Woo-hoo.
Exactly. So Mike chimed in here, and I'm glad that he did. So Mike, we had the interview with him, and he was talking about his Cuban heritage. Mike is born in the United States, but he is saying that he was told he would never hold a top secret clearance because his dad was born in Cuba and he still has relatives there, even though he has no contact with them. So this is Mike.
Plus, he might be hiding secrets in his mustache.
Maybe. So this is how it works. That I hate to say that there's a different set of rules depending on where you fall on the spectrum, right? So for the majority of us who work for a living, and I mean literally work for a living, you have to be pristine, absolutely pristine, and no family ties, where you were born, all of these things to get a security clearance. But if you go to Congress or you're working in the White House or you're a relative of one of these folks, hey, whatever, right? So in this case, you have somebody like Hunter Biden who put his dad's job in jeopardy because of his relationships. That seemed to be okay. So that was a little weird to me, but okay, so we've got Hunter, we've got Joe Biden, we've got all the Trump clan, and I use that word specifically.
Clan with a K.
Yeah, clan with a K. You've got all of them who should be nowhere near any sensitive information, but wait, there's more. So this one I thought was interesting. So this is Virginia. Virginia, remember Uranium One? The whole thing with what was it? Hillary sold 20% of our uranium. No, this is actually what happened. Okay, so we have uranium mines in the United States. Uranium One, through a Canadian company, is now 20% controlling interest owned by a Russian company. Okay? Everybody got that? So Russia owns 20% stake in a Canadian company that owns mines in the United States. Right. So in this original article, going back to 2013, it talks about how Virginia's Coal Hill uranium mine, this is in Virginia, wanted to expand their mining operations for uranium, and Russia, via Uranium One, was totally backing it. The problem was, in 1983, the state of Virginia had put a ban on expanding uranium mining. And that ban was only supposed to last for a year, but they just kept renewing it every year. So what happened was this went to court. Uranium One took this to court, and it went all the way up to the Supreme Court, right? So this had nothing to do with Hillary or Obama or whatever. This was a state right versus federal right. And the Republicans were arguing in favor of the federal right over states' right in a complete reversal of ideology. So getting back to our prior show on the Supreme Court and everything, this was interesting because in 2018, the Supreme Court heard the case and made a decision, and the Supreme Court voted with Virginia, the state rule. And what it was is the people that on the Supreme Court, remember those conservative justices? It was Gorsuch, Thomas, Kavanaugh that sided with the state of Virginia. And Justice Ginsburg also sided with them, but decided to write her own opinion. And her own opinion was, yeah, I agree with Gorsuch and Thomas and everyone else. So the ban held, right? Virginia got to keep its ban, and the people of Virginia got to say what they were trying to do. So this is the Uranium One deal. Okay, so it was Republicans and Hillary trying to help this Russian company access uranium ore in a Virginia mine. So we have, what, 5 major mines? Wyoming, Colorado, I want to say Utah, but I'm not sure. Virginia. So this is where the Uranium One deal comes from. And I just thought it was interesting because here yet again, the hyperbole of what they actually did are completely different. So we say, the conservatives typically say states' rights, but here when it came to commerce and working with a Russian company, they wanted to flip that. And then here again, we had the liberal justices and the conservative justices siding together for states' rights. So
Corruption with a half-life.
Right. So, but that's not all. So Mitch McConnell, he's got his own little Russia, his Russia sugar mommies and sugar daddies. So this story was hilarious too. So Mitch McConnell wanted to have this Russian company come in and do an aluminum processing plant in Kentucky, which on the surface sounds like a great idea because Kentucky has a vast number of jobless Kentuckians who are just looking for a day's work. So they thought, well, let's bring in the Russian oligarchs to Kentucky to open this aluminum processing plant. And the guy behind this was, what's his name? Buchanan. So he was the entrepreneur / grifter who put this deal together, and he was on one side of the table and the Russian oligarchs are on the other, and he put it together. And so Mitch McConnell was supposed to lift the sanctions. And while he himself said, oh, no, this had nothing to do with it, the timing is like one right after another. So Mitch McConnell went against his Republican counterparts, whipped the votes, and got this passed. So you now have Russian oligarchs invested in Kentucky. They got,
How is that possible, Carrie?
So they're all in Kentucky doing this thing. And what happened to Buchanan? So I was like, okay, this happened a few years ago. Where's Buchanan now? So in that little red box that I put up there, he became the CEO of this new venture. And he was quickly, once they were putting the reports together and things are like, hey, maybe Russian oligarchs are not a good thing. The heat started to get turned on. He was pushed out as CEO of the Kentucky Aluminum Company. But don't cry for Buchanan because he was a millionaire before and now he's even richer because he got this really nice golden parachute to leave quietly, right? So he's doing just fine. So are the Russians who invested in Kentucky. So now
Do you think Mitch McConnell's pee-pee tape smells like Jack Daniels?
What? Oh my God.
Isn't that where JD is made?
Please don't tell me he's got a pee-pee tape.
I hope so.
Wow.
Really hope so.
Wow. Okay, so let me go to our comments real quick here. So Lee, former military guy himself, he said, having too much credit card debt can be enough to revoke clearance. And he said, I only had a secret level, but one of the guys in my section almost had his clearance revoked because he spent too much time losing at the casino. Right. That's so any edge that a foreign government, foreign operatives can get, whether you've got too much debt or you're having an affair. Hello, Congress. If you're having an affair. Now, if you have a fetish, depends on what the fetish is, but anything that can be used for blackmail, coercion, whatever, security clearance gone. So, but apparently not for Mitch McConnell and Rick Perry and all of these people. However, I do want to call your attention to what happens to regular folks, because this just hit the news and nobody was reporting on it. This gentleman, Peter Debbins, he is now up on espionage charges. He was a former Green Beret, and he was arrested in Virginia. But when he was in college, he had already expressed frustration and animosity towards the United States. So that's the other part of your security clearance. You have to have an allegiance to the United States. So this guy, while he was an Army Green Beret, had animus towards the United States and its policies. And he is quoted as saying that he thought the United States was too dominant in the world and needed to be cut down to size. Right? So maybe that was his impetus. But what we find throughout the report on his arrest for espionage is, at first he was doing it for free. But they're going to wear you down. Right? So they gave him good vodka and a Russian military uniform. And that was enough. But then later he started taking money in payments. And what he is accused of, based on this report, now some of it is confidential and redacted, just providing information on who some of the other people were serving in Korea and in other areas while he was there. So he was honorably discharged from the military and was working in Virginia. It's unclear exactly what kind of work he was doing, but he was still an asset for Russian intelligence, and that is why he has been arrested, and he is likely to go to jail for a long, long time, if not face the death penalty. And that's where kind of the seriousness comes in from this, because like Snowden, when Snowden signed his paperwork to get a security clearance and be employed, there's a clause in there that says you consent to fines and penalties up to and including punishment by death if you violate any of these terms. So for everybody below that top 1-2%, that's what you're looking at. So you have the Green Beret who was passing along information. It's unclear whether that information cost lives or other programs. But then we had the discussion about Scooter Libby, who was exonerated even though he did cost lives. So it really depends on where you fall. If you're a congressman or a member of the royal political family, you can get away with a whole lot that we cannot. So, all right, did I miss anything? I think that was kind of the crux of this whole Ukrainian thing, because there's so much money going around Russia from small oligarchs because of Russia's neoliberal policies and embracing corruption, and we are now we're pretty damn close to what Putin was able to do, enriching his friends. And this is why, like, if you see somebody who's running a campaign, like everybody who's running in the Biden campaign or, you know, in the Trump campaign, they work so hard at it because they are chomping at the bit for their candidate to get elected so that they become part of that royal family and can enrich themselves through these deals.
Yes. And then if you were, you know, against Hillary Clinton in 2016, another thing that voting for Joe does, it puts the Clintons back in the White House.
Sure does. Sure does. So, Chelsea Clinton, 2024. Just like,
What was the name? What was the name of the dog again?
yeah.
2028.
Yeah, exactly. What was the dog? I don't remember. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I would be shocked if they still own that dog. But yeah, so this is our Making It Rain and how that actually works, focusing on this 87-page report from the Republicans who oh boy, you better come up with something else for October, because this is just, it's sad. It's sad and wrong. And all it does is make people a little more upset about how all y'all are running things. And oh, by the way, we still have millions of people unemployed. We have 200,000 families who are grieving from COVID. We have people who have food insecurity, food shortages. We have climate change. We have all of these massive major problems. And you're focused on who's getting paid by whom in a millionaire setting.
Right, exactly. Look, you got to just look at the big picture and understand that all of these decisions are based on making people that have so much money that they couldn't possibly spend it all to make more.
Right. Yeah, what was
at the detriment of everybody else.
What was the stat about Jeff Bezos? I'm going to get it wrong. I don't have it in front of me. But if Jeff Bezos took the money that he has made from April of this year, no, March of this year to today off of the COVID pandemic, just that segment of money, he could have every Amazon employee gifted $108,000 in a bonus, and Bezos himself would be right back to where he was in April. That's how much money we're talking about with all of these, the 1% and 2%ers. And it goes from Congress to, I mean, you know, Trump himself, he had Elon Musk and that whole tech council, which seemed like a good idea, but what were they trying to do? You can see from Mitch McConnell's actions, they want regulations lifted, rollbacks lifted. You have Trump now trying to forward fracking along the Rio Grande and Colorado rivers, where you can least spare any water that supplies water for 10 states. Why would you frack there? But those are the regulations that they sit down and have these deals and dinners and whatever, and it affects you and I. So in Congress right now, they have walked away from any type of support for the American people, for small businesses, for Main Street, in favor of playing these mean girl games about who got paid by which Russian oligarch. And I think this is where we need to focus and stop fighting each other.
Right, and you've got, like, I mean, even the industry, the marijuana industry. Why hasn't it been federally legalized yet? Well, the oligarchs haven't put themselves in a position yet to completely benefit from its legalization. Right, we are going to legalize it. You're going to lose money from the for-profit prison system, right? And so you're going to shift to the marijuana production side of that to compensate for the loss, and then you can transition to the legalization because you're not in any fear of losing any money from that. Oh
yeah, and it's good that you brought that up, because we had the interview with Jenna Wadsworth and Brandon from DLF here. There was a really, and Jenna got fired up on that one. But she was talking about more about that particular subject, and I think that I don't often say this about a candidate, and it's not because I'm arrogant, but I have learned so much from listening to her talk about her race in North Carolina in the broader scope of how it affects, you know, like you said, the legalization question, food insecurity, how food is managed, just based on listening to her talk. So I'm blown away by those interviews and Jenna herself. So if you haven't seen them, go and see those interviews. They're on our Facebook, on our YouTube, Twitter, all of those things. Amazing, amazing candidate. And please, Lord, North Carolina, go vote for her.
And it's a very important story to hear, because, especially for you, right? Because you've been a somewhat open book about your experiences with the DNC and what happened, you know. And so I can imagine that you're basically alone in your fight, or at least feel like that. when all of this goes down. So it's so important to hear other perspectives that are, very similar to yours, to understand that, no, you're not going crazy. No, you're not alone. It's just a matter of time before these stories and the telling of these stories becomes normal. Mm-hmm. And people start to realize how badly they're getting fucked by the establishment and the way, the BAU of what happens in American politics.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that more people are going to start to become familiar with these stories and what's actually happening. And you just look at the stories we covered here. Can you tell the difference between a Republican and a Democrat? And that's by design. When we talked about corporate media, MSNBC being co-opted by right-wing punditry, that's by design. So for anyone to still have the expectation that there is a difference in the party leadership, it's a mistake. And I'm not talking necessarily about specific policy pieces, right? So you've got the Republicans who actually like ACA, but they can't admit it. And then you've got Biden who actually likes ACA, but wants to improve it. What the fuck is the difference when people are dying, right? So they're all Republicans. They are absolutely all Republicans. And, oh, by the way, not even conservatives. I can deal with a conservative. I cannot deal with these Republicans. And that includes the Republicans who are leading the DNC who don't give a shit about what's going on Main Street in your house, your backyard. That is...
Yes, yeah. It's amazing to me that there's a viable party in the United States that's entire agenda is based on lying to the public.
Oh, absolutely. And at this point have dropped all pretense of it, right? They just, yeah. And if you want to hear more, go back to our Monday episode where we talked about the Supreme Court and why you should stop freaking out about it, because what they're telling you and what's actually happening are two different things. And it all goes back to this one party rule, but that's, go watch that. But, okay, so Mike did find the name of the dog. The dog's name is Buddy. Buddy, what's his name? Yes, Buddy. So when you can't think of somebody's name, you call him Buddy. So the dog just took the name, Buddy. So thank you, Mike. Appreciate that. Okay, so that is all I have for my rant this morning. Andy, you got anything to take us out of here with, or just...
No, I think that because of the number of truth bombs that we dropped today, that we should get the last 6 or 7 minutes off of the hour, is kind of like a little thank you.
Okay. All right, then I do want to pass along one thing. During this time where it is depressing and we are still social distancing and people are really having a hard time with it, suicide ideation is a big thing, and it's a topic that I do want to expand on later. But for now, I want to leave you with this really nice Arabic quote. It's a saying, and the saying is, you say you want to kill yourself, so go into the ocean. And what you will find is that soon you will start to struggle and you will realize that you want to live. So what you are actually focused on is killing that thing inside you that makes you feel this way, not ending your life. So I have had some personal family and friends who have struggled significantly. So I want to put that out there, and we'll do a segment on it, and I think maybe we can get some professionals in here to weigh in. Hang in there, everybody. We are hardwired to help each other, to be community, and a vehicle like this sort of helps, but we will get through this. And despite all the snark and all the stuff that we bring that's kind of negative, we will get through this. I guarantee it. We're in this together. So with that, everybody have a good day. Try to have a good weekend, and we'll see you back here on Monday. Thank you.
Here.
The dark, we bout that, ayy. We in the zone, we out here, yeah. Spitting the facts, how it's supposed to be. Have the dark, we keeping it G. Whoa.